Diamonds dancing this morning today, ain't they?
Yeah.
Did he have that on yesterday?
I think he did.
Diamond.
And where they're getting reps and those type of things. He's working extremely hard, like all those guys are. We're still not yet through the installation schedule. We're still just introducing 2-minute yesterday. We'll introduce some different distances today, situationally. So I wouldn't.
He's not getting the reps in practice. So what really is happening is he's going to have to be like spectacular in the preseason games.
Trust in my content, as you guys should trust me anyway, but nice slant route right there. Just being able to move the sticks, not force anything. He also threw a quick out pass right there.
I mean, I think he's damn good. Yeah. And he can go toe to toe with anyone.
What if I told you that everything you're seeing with Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland isn't just about football? It's about a systematic conspiracy involving NFL owners, media manipulation, and a deliberate attempt to bury the most dangerous quarterback prospect in decades. While you've been watching Kenny Pickett's convenient hamstring injury, Dylan Gabriel's pick-6 disasters, and Joe Flacco's veteran management, a shadow war has been raging behind the scenes. Shedeur Sanders isn't just fighting for a starting position, he's fighting against an entire system designed to keep him silent, invisible, and powerless. Today, I'm exposing the truth they don't want you to know. The Cleveland Browns walked into training camp thinking they had control over their quarterback narrative. Joe Flacco would manage, Dylan Gabriel would develop, Kenny Pickett would compete, and Shedeur Sanders would just be grateful to be there. But what's unfolding isn't incompetence, it's a coordinated conspiracy to suppress a player who represents everything the NFL establishment fears. From Coach Kevin Stefanski's carefully orchestrated installation schedule that deliberately limits Sanders' opportunities to Jimmy Haslam's calculated public disavowal to a media machine that celebrates Gabriel's mediocrity while burying Sanders' excellence, we're witnessing the most sophisticated quarterback suppression campaign in NFL history. Over the next several minutes, I'll reveal 5 shocking truths that prove this isn't about talent evaluation. It's about power, control, and protecting a system that values compliance over competence. Kenny Pickett's hamstring injury wasn't just a convenient opening in the quarterback competition, it was the perfect cover for a predetermined plan to elevate Dylan Gabriel while systematically suppressing Shedeur Sanders. The timing, the severity, and the organizational response all point to a carefully orchestrated manipulation designed to create the illusion of open competition while maintaining rigid control over the outcome. Consider the mathematical impossibility of what followed Pickett's injury. Instead of the logical progression, promoting the quarterback who had been consistently outperforming everyone, the Browns doubled down on Gabriel, a third-round pick who stands 5 feet 11 inches and literally cannot see over his 6 feet 5 inches offensive lineman. This isn't roster management, it's organizational protection of a predetermined narrative. The evidence is overwhelming when you examine Sanders' actual performance metrics. On day 4 of training camp, while Gabriel was struggling with basic reads, Sanders threw 3 jaw-dropping touchdowns, each showcasing different elite skills, threading tight coverage, launching perfect deep balls, and making quick reads under pressure. The response? Silence from the coaching staff and continued relegation to second-team reps. Day 5 revealed the conspiracy's true depth. While the defense dominated most offensive players, Sanders maintained a perfect 100% completion rate and threw 2 beautiful touchdowns. One was a masterpiece under pressure, pocket collapsing, defenders closing in, yet Sanders stood strong and threw a bullet over the defender's shoulder into the receiver's hands. This wasn't luck, this was elite quarterback play that should have immediately changed the depth chart. But here's where the manipulation becomes undeniable. Sanders' rapid-fire drill performance of 7 for 10 with 0 interceptions was systematically ignored, while Gabriel's 10 for 16 with an interception was treated as acceptable development. The mathematical reality is stark. Sanders had a higher completion percentage with perfect ball security, yet Gabriel continued receiving first-team opportunities. Coach Kevin Stefanski's installation schedule reveals the most insidious aspect of this conspiracy. By keeping Sanders out of advanced offensive concepts and limiting him to basic 2-minute and situational work, they created artificial barriers to his development. Stefanski publicly stated they were still not yet through the installation schedule and still just introducing 2-minute yesterday, convenient timing that ensured Sanders couldn't demonstrate his full capabilities. The psychological warfare embedded in this system is sophisticated. Sanders was told he'd have to be spectacular in the preseason games because he wasn't getting the reps in practice. This creates an impossible standard: perform spectacularly with limited preparation and inferior supporting cast, while your competition gets unlimited opportunities with elite talent. The most damning evidence is Sanders' response to this systematic suppression. Instead of creating drama, he arrived 45 minutes early to every practice, working on reflexes and timing while Gabriel received standard preparation. This level of professionalism and work ethic should have been rewarded, but instead became another tool for his marginalization, proof that he wouldn't cause problems and could be safely ignored. The Pickett injury wasn't an opportunity for fair competition. It was the trigger for a predetermined plan to validate Gabriel while burying Sanders, regardless of performance. Dylan Gabriel's protection by the Cleveland Browns organization represents one of the most sophisticated failure cover-up operations in modern NFL history. Despite throwing a devastating pick-six because he literally couldn't see over his offensive line, Gabriel continues receiving first-team reps while Sanders, who hasn't thrown a single interception, remains buried on the depth chart. This isn't coaching, it's conspiracy. The Day 6 disaster exposed everything. Gabriel dropped back in a red zone drill, scanned a field he couldn't properly see due to his 5 feet 11 inches frame behind 6 feet 5 inches lineman, and fired straight into coverage. Cameron Mitchell gladly intercepted the underthrown duck, but instead of immediate consequences, Gabriel received more opportunities. Meanwhile, Sanders completed passes to Gage Larvadain on perfect seam routes with veteran poise, yet saw no promotion in the rotation. The linguistic manipulation surrounding Gabriel's failures reveals the conspiracy's sophistication. When Gabriel throws interceptions, they're described as learning experiences and growing pains. When he completes basic passes, it's celebrated as building chemistry and showing promise. The media protection is so obvious it's insulting. Gabriel's pick-six was blamed on not getting enough arc and not seeing the linebacker, as if these aren't fundamental quarterback failures. Compare this to Sanders' treatment after his flawless performances. His touchdown pass on his third rep with the first-team defense was dismissed as a small sample size. His perfect completion rate against elite competition was minimized because he was working with the second-team offense. The double standard is mathematically impossible to justify. Gabriel fails upward while Sanders excels into irrelevance. The most revealing aspect is how Gabriel's physical limitations are being ignored. Standing 5 feet 11 inches behind an NFL offensive line isn't a minor disadvantage, it's a fundamental flaw that affects every passing play. Yet the organization continues investing in this limitation while Sanders, who demonstrates elite pocket presence and vision, remains marginalized. This suggests the decision-making isn't based on football evaluation but on protecting organizational pride. Joe Flacco's role in this conspiracy is equally calculated. His veteran presence provides cover for Gabriel's development while creating an artificial ceiling for Sanders. Flacco's Day 6 performance, 4 for 4 in 7-on-7s and 2 for 4 in the 2-minute drill with a rare scramble, was solid but unremarkable. Yet his steady play is used to justify keeping Sanders away from meaningful reps, creating a system where mediocrity is rewarded and excellence is suppressed. The fan rebellion against this protection racket is growing impossible to ignore. Social media exploded after Gabriel's pick-six, with Browns Nation demanding answers about why Sanders isn't getting opportunities. Fans are breaking down film, comparing footwork and decision-making, creating organic analysis that exposes the gap between organizational messaging and reality. The most damning evidence is how veterans are responding. Players don't publicly endorse buried quarterbacks unless they see something special in practice. The whispers around the facility about Sanders' calm demeanor and impressive play represent a quiet rebellion against coaching decisions that prioritize politics over performance. Gabriel's continued protection despite obvious failures proves this isn't about winning. It's about validating predetermined decisions regardless of evidence. Jimmy Haslam's public declaration that he wasn't behind the pick of Shedeur Sanders represents the most calculated psychological warfare attack ever launched by an NFL owner against his own player. This wasn't a casual comment or media slip. It was a strategic nuclear strike designed to undermine Sanders' confidence, isolate him within the organization, and provide cover for his systematic suppression. The timing of Haslam's bombshell reveals the conspiracy's sophistication. He waited until Sanders had already proven himself superior to Gabriel in every measurable category: completion percentage, decision-making, pocket presence, and leadership. Only after Sanders threw that perfect touchdown on his third rep with the first-team defense, only after his flawless performances in pressure situations, did Haslam drop this psychological bomb. The message was clear: no matter how well you perform, you're not wanted here. This psychological warfare tactic serves multiple strategic purposes. First, it provides organizational cover for continued marginalization. If the owner didn't want the player, coaches can justify limiting his opportunities. Second, it attempts to create self-doubt in Sanders, potentially affecting his performance and creating the justification for his treatment. Third, it sends a message to teammates and media that Sanders is expendable, regardless of talent. The contrast with Gabriel's treatment exposes the conspiracy's depth. While Sanders faces public humiliation from ownership, Gabriel receives unconditional organizational support despite throwing pick sixes and demonstrating fundamental limitations. This creates a psychological environment where one player must overcome institutional hostility while the other enjoys institutional protection. The most insidious aspect is how Haslam's comments reframe Sanders' achievements. Every perfect completion, every touchdown pass, every demonstration of elite quarterback skills becomes evidence of organizational failure rather than player excellence. This psychological manipulation is designed to make Sanders' success feel hollow and temporary, creating mental pressure that could affect future performance. The fan response to Haslam's sabotage reveals how transparent this psychological warfare has become. Browns Nation immediately recognized the comments as organizational politics rather than football evaluation. Social media lit up with fans questioning whether personal bias was influencing roster decisions, with many pointing out the hypocrisy of an owner who approved Deshaun Watson's $230 million guaranteed contract while undermining a polished, humble rookie. The psychological impact on Sanders has been carefully monitored and managed. Instead of breaking under this institutional pressure, Sanders has responded with increased professionalism and work ethic. His 45-minute early arrivals, his continued excellence in limited opportunities, and his mature handling of media questions demonstrate extraordinary mental strength that actually makes him more dangerous to the conspiracy. The most damaging aspect of Haslam's psychological warfare is how it exposes the organization's priorities. By publicly undermining a player who represents everything positive about professional football, work ethic, humility, performance under pressure, Haslam revealed that organizational control matters more than winning, politics matter more than performance, and ego matters more than excellence. This psychological warfare campaign isn't just about Sanders, it's about maintaining a system where ownership can override obvious talent through institutional manipulation, creating a culture where compliance is valued over competence and where psychological pressure is used to suppress merit-based advancement. The media coverage of Shedeur Sanders versus Dylan Gabriel represents the most sophisticated narrative manipulation campaign in recent NFL history, designed to protect organizational interests while suppressing obvious talent. Every report, every highlight package, Every analysis piece has been carefully crafted to minimize Sanders' achievements while amplifying Gabriel's mediocrity, creating an alternate reality that contradicts observable evidence. The linguistic manipulation is systematic and revealing. When Sanders completed his perfect seam route to Gage Larvadain with veteran poise, it received minimal coverage and was quickly dismissed as working with second-team units. When Gabriel threw his pick six because he couldn't see over the offensive line, it was described as a learning experience and part of the development process. This isn't journalism, it's propaganda designed to protect predetermined narratives. The selective reporting of practice footage exposes the conspiracy's visual manipulation tactics. Sanders' touchdown pass on his third rep with the first-team defense, a play that would have been replayed endlessly if thrown by a first-round pick, received brief coverage and minimal analysis. Meanwhile, Gabriel's basic completions are shown in slow motion with detailed breakdowns, creating artificial importance around routine plays. The most damaging aspect is how expert opinions are being suppressed or manipulated. When Myles Garrett, one of the NFL's premier defensive players, stated that Sanders can go toe-to-toe with anybody in the league and called him damn good, that quote was buried in longer articles rather than becoming headline news. Compare this to how any positive comment about Gabriel is amplified across multiple platforms and repeated in various contexts. The statistical manipulation reveals the conspiracy's mathematical dishonesty. Sanders' 7 for 10 performance in rapid-fire drills with 0 interceptions is consistently downplayed, while Gabriel's 10 for 16 with an interception is presented as acceptable progress. The media refuses to acknowledge that Sanders had a higher completion percentage with perfect ball security, instead focusing on Gabriel's higher attempt total as evidence of trust from coaches. The timing of coverage exposes the narrative control operation. Sanders' most impressive performances, his Day 4 3-touchdown showcase, his Day 5 perfect completion rate under pressure, his consistent excellence with inferior supporting casts, receive delayed or minimal coverage, ensuring they don't build momentum. Gabriel's struggles are immediately followed by analysis pieces about development curves and learning processes, providing instant context that minimizes negative impact. The fan rebellion against this media manipulation is growing impossible to ignore. Organic social media analysis is exposing the gap between official narratives and observable reality. Fans are creating their own highlight packages, breaking down Sanders' footwork and decision-making, and demanding explanations for the coverage disparity. This grassroots movement represents a direct threat to the narrative control operation. The most revealing aspect is how quickly the media pivots when Sanders succeeds. His flawless performance with the first-team defense was immediately followed by articles about small sample sizes and need for consistency, revealing prepared talking points designed to minimize any achievement that threatens the established narrative. This media manipulation serves the broader conspiracy by controlling public perception, protecting organizational decision-making, and creating artificial patience for Gabriel's development while suppressing momentum for Sanders' advancement. It's not reporting. It's institutional protection disguised as journalism. The most terrifying aspect of the Shedeur Sanders conspiracy is how it's already beginning to collapse under the weight of undeniable evidence, mathematical impossibilities, and growing resistance from fans, veterans, and reality itself. What we're witnessing isn't just organizational incompetence, it's the systematic failure of a sophisticated suppression campaign that underestimated both Sanders' resilience and the transparency of modern NFL operations. The statistical impossibility of the situation is becoming undeniable. Sanders' 0 interceptions through multiple training camp sessions, his perfect completion rates in pressure situations, his 3-touchdown Day 4 performance, his flawless Day 5 showing, and his immediate success with first-team units create a mathematical profile that contradicts every aspect of the official narrative. Every practice session adds more evidence that the depth chart is based on politics rather than performance. The veteran player rebellion represents the most dangerous threat to the conspiracy. When Myles Garrett publicly declares that Sanders can go toe-to-toe with anybody in the league, it's not casual praise, it's a direct challenge to organizational decision-making. Elite defensive players don't make these statements lightly, and their support creates locker room momentum that's impossible to suppress indefinitely. The whispers around the facility about Sanders' calm demeanor and impressive play represent a quiet uprising against coaching decisions that prioritize politics over performance. The fan revolution is equally damaging to the conspiracy's foundation. Browns Nation is no longer accepting official explanations for Sanders' marginalization. Social media is exploding with side-by-side comparisons of Sanders and Gabriel, organic film analysis that exposes the talent gap, and demands for accountability from ownership and coaching staff. Fans are calling radio shows, chanting for Sanders during open practices, and creating grassroots pressure that's becoming impossible to ignore. The mathematical progression of Sanders' opportunities reveals the conspiracy's controlled retreat. From zero first-team reps to situational work to expanded roles, the organization is gradually acknowledging reality while trying to maintain face. This careful escalation proves they know the truth about his abilities but are managing the transition to protect their credibility. The most damaging evidence is Sanders himself. His continued excellence despite systematic suppression, his professional response to public humiliation, his 45-minute early arrivals and extra preparation, and his mature handling of an impossible situation demonstrate character that makes him impossible to ignore indefinitely. Every day he remains buried while outperforming his competition adds to the evidence of institutional failure. The cover-up strategy is already shifting to damage control. The gradual increase in Sanders' opportunities, the subtle changes in media coverage, and the preparation of narrative explanations for his eventual promotion all indicate that the conspiracy is preparing for inevitable exposure. They're trying to rewrite history in real time, positioning his rise as part of their plan rather than evidence of their failure. The ultimate irony is that the conspiracy's sophisticated suppression tactics have actually made Sanders stronger and more dangerous. His resilience under institutional pressure, his performance despite artificial limitations, and his professional response to psychological warfare have created a compelling narrative that will make his eventual takeover even more dramatic and damaging to those who tried to bury him. When Sanders finally takes over, and the mathematical certainty of his superiority makes this inevitable, the entire conspiracy will be exposed as a case study in how organizational politics can temporarily override merit but never permanently suppress talent. The evidence trail is too extensive, the performance gap too obvious, and the resistance too widespread for this suppression campaign to succeed. The most dangerous element for the conspirators is that Sanders' story is becoming bigger than football. His systematic suppression despite obvious excellence, his professional response to institutional hostility, and his continued performance under impossible circumstances represent something that resonates beyond sports, the triumph of merit over politics, talent over control, and character over conspiracy. The collapse isn't just coming, it's already begun. Every practice session, every fan chant, every veteran endorsement, and every statistical comparison accelerates the inevitable reckoning. The question isn't whether the conspiracy will be exposed, but how much institutional damage it will cause before admitting the obvious truth that everyone with eyes can already see. What we've uncovered today exposes the darkest aspects of modern NFL operations, a systematic conspiracy involving ownership sabotage, media manipulation, practice suppression, and psychological warfare, all designed to bury the most talented quarterback in Cleveland while protecting organizational pride and predetermined narratives. From Jimmy Haslam's calculated public humiliation to Kevin Stefanski's installation schedule manipulation, from Dylan Gabriel's protection racket despite pick-six disasters to the media's coordinated suppression of Myles Garrett's endorsement that Sanders can go toe-to-toe with anybody in the league, we've seen how powerful forces can temporarily suppress obvious talent through institutional conspiracy. But here's what they didn't count on: Shedeur Sanders' unbreakable character, his 45-minute early arrivals, his perfect 7 for 10 performance in pressure drills, his flawless completion rates, his 3 touchdown showcases, and his 0 interceptions despite facing first-team defenses with second-team support. They didn't count on fans recognizing the mathematical impossibility of keeping superior talent buried, or veterans like Myles Garrett publicly challenging organizational decisions. The conspiracy is already collapsing. Kenny Pickett's convenient injury opened a competition that exposed Gabriel's fundamental limitations. Sanders' immediate success with first-team opportunities proved what everyone suspected. The fan rebellion, the veteran support, and the undeniable statistical evidence are creating pressure that's impossible to ignore. The most important lesson? This conspiracy will fail because talent always rises, truth always surfaces, and fans always recognize authenticity. Shedeur Sanders isn't just fighting for a starting position, he's proving that merit still matters, even when the entire system is rigged against you. The revolution has already begun. The question isn't whether Sanders will take over, but how much institutional damage the conspiracy will cause before admitting what everyone already knows. They've been trying to bury their franchise quarterback. What do you think? Have you seen the evidence of this systematic suppression? Are you ready to demand accountability from organizations that prioritize politics over performance? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this story is bigger than football, and the truth demands to be heard.